Welcome to the With Generous Hearts podcast, where stories and spirit meet. Listeners, you are in for a treat today. We get to sit down with Deirdre Stiles, a lifelong Episcopalian and a newer member here at Christ Church. This conversation was a gift of wisdom. And I pray, especially if you're having to make a hard decision or you feel overwhelmed, or especially if you feel lost, that today's conversation is a gift for you. I know it was for me. I'm excited for you to hear it. So let's welcome Deirdre to the podcast.
I'm excited to sit down with Deirdre Stiles today and welcome her to the podcast. When I was asking the church leadership about a newcomer, Catherine Saunders said, you've got to meet this new member who's already embodying hospitality and welcome, which is such a part of Christ Church. And so we're so excited to have you, Deirdre, in the conversation and welcome you here today. I wonder, as a new member, what brought you here and maybe what kept you coming?
Right. My story about what brought me here was interesting in that I'm a lifelong Episcopalian.
Okay.
I moved to Charlotte going on 3 years ago, so soon 3 years. And I actually heard about Christ Church for the first time on the massage table.
Okay.
Because Joshua Case's wife is a massage therapist.
Okay.
And somehow, because we were talking about community and church, all the wonderful things that bring health and well-being, including massage, I said, I'm looking for a church home or a church family. Maybe she had mentioned something about being an Episcopalian herself. Anyway, I said, where do you go? And she said, well, funny you should ask. And the rest is history. She told me about Christ Church. I probably came 2 or 3 Sundays after that conversation and never visited anywhere else.
Really?
Absolutely knew this was my church. This was my home. This was my family. This was my community. Maybe because I'm the age that I am and you sort of know where you feel comfortable, so it wasn't complicated for me. I also wasn't changing denominations. So many people that come now to Christ Church, which I'm very excited about, are not just like me. They're not lifelong Episcopalians.
What about this church when you walked in? You said you knew you felt comfortable, but what made it feel sacred for you?
Right. I met Catherine via email. So interestingly, I introduced myself to folks via email before I came.
Okay.
So
Lots of people say the church has an open door now 24 hours a day because of email and website and all of those pieces.
Catherine and Laura, who's part of Outreach, both responded to me right away. Their emails were very welcoming. And then I had the incredible good fortune to sit down on my first Sunday next to Ann and John Crehor, who have been here forever. Ann grew up in the church. I think John's been here since they married. We walked out. He was on hospitality committee. Turns out I was on his list to reach out to.
Oh, wow.
And they said, how about this? How about that? Are you interested in? We were just sitting next to each other. And so I was almost immediately scooped up, and I did feel a divine hand in that first Sunday, just scooped up by folks who had been here and welcomed me and connected me and let me know all sorts of things that were going on at the church. So not only did I have sort of the structure, which I think Christ Church has an amazing infrastructure of staff people like yourself that are, whose job it is, but who are so welcoming by nature. Catherine just is. She would be that way if she didn't work here. But then I sat next to people who embodied it as parishioners and as members of the community. So for me, the rest was kind of history. I just started coming regularly. I immediately volunteered for Good News Shop because I heard you will just meet people by being there. And it's not the same people, right? Whoever comes in. And so I volunteered on the Thursday morning because that was ladies' Bible study, knowing that I would meet some folks who were coming through. It sort of happened so effortlessly. And then Catherine asked me to join hospitality. I've only been on the committee a year, but it's probably one of my favorite things I've ever done as part of. I've been on vestry selection, and
I was like, you've done a lot as a lifelong Episcopalian, I'm
and
sure.
that was in my 20s because it was the parish I grew up in. It was the parish I'd been in since I was a toddler. And my father had been on the board of the Episcopal school that I went to, so we were incredibly involved. And then I spent years not being as involved in the Episcopal Church. And new to a city at age 60, not really knowing a soul other than my children, and they're now my grandchildren. I immediately had a family. I had not just like-minded people, because I think we're a wonderfully diverse community, but people who are showing up for much of the same reason and purpose and goal, even if how we got here and how we show our divine gifts are different. Yeah.
I love that, because what you're describing, first of all, I love the image you used of it was the divine hand. Like you could feel this was God saying, I got you. I got you in a new place. I've got you. And I'm not just giving you a pew to sit in. I'm giving you people.
Right.
I'm giving you community to surround you. And it makes me think of the little rhyme that kids did, like, here's the church, here's the steeple, open the door and see the people.
Right.
And it feels like you knew church, you knew steeple, you knew, what it meant to be Episcopalian, and this journey to Charlotte was, and here's the people.
Right.
Right? And God's saying, like, I got you in this, and this is what I'm going to offer you. I mean, that's beautiful. And I think there's such a loneliness epidemic in our culture. And so even as you described, there's vulnerability in putting yourself out there, but it's also beautiful that people met you
100%
where you were. This podcast series we've been doing is focused on kind of perseverance and generosity together.
Right.
We're going to be talking this fall throughout the parish about the power of perseverance. How do we name hard things? How do we keep showing up? And as I thought about it, I was like, man, there really are two sides of the same coin, because when we need to show up, sometimes we can pull out, sometimes we can be less generous because it's hard and it hurts, and other times we can lean into community. And I wonder for you, when has perseverance and generosity been true in your life?
I would say beginning as a young parent with a husband who traveled a great deal we were consultants, and I stopped being a consultant in order to have the family and went back to school. So I was a PhD student, but he was still doing the consulting life, meaning on the road. And so I was trying to be a PhD student and discovered that 2 weeks into my PhD program, I was expecting my daughter. I persevered in that program for a year. It was incredibly challenging. And then I realized that what mattered most to me was more generous time with my daughter at that point in my life. And it wasn't the most generous thing for my career path or whatever, but it was where I wanted to persevere. And so I really focused my energy on creating my family. And that took me into incredible places. It wasn't what I expected. And so one of the things I think about perseverance and the challenges that generosity can sometimes represent for us is leaning into that uncomfortable place and being generous when we're also being asked to persevere at the same time. When you have children, you either open fully to that giving of yourself, which then allows you to do it more and more and that's what the experience certainly was for me. And then I moved because my father was unwell. And once we sort of got through the pandemic and they got settled, I've come here to be a part of my children's lives in raising these incredible little boys. And again, grandparenting is so much more fun. I know you said you're a parent, so much more fun being a grandparent, but allows you to be generous again in new kinds of ways.
So I think what you're describing, it's not that those choices are easy, right? Like, I think when you think generosity, it's like, oh, it's easy. No, it's the harder thing. For me at that time, that was my path. And I think we each find our way to what is generosity, what do we have to offer, and what's the best means to offer that.
to serve, as well as to recognize and serve and not pour from an empty pitcher, which I think is the counterpoint to sometimes being overly generous. And that is that you're taking care of yourself. Christ Church is so wonderful about making sure people are looking at that balance, making sure they're pouring from that full pitcher. God's there to fill our pitcher. We do have to slow down long enough to for the water to
hold it under the faucet, right? Like, here's what we've got to do.
Right.
So I wonder, you're studying, you're a PhD student. What were you a PhD student in?
French. French studies.
Okay. I took a lot of years of French and I still am not very good at it. I wonder, you're in that space, you're making a decision that says, like, I'm going to reorient my life. I've put a lot of energy, academic accolades, all of those things. What did that decision teach you about God?
Oh, gosh. Well, that God, the divine hand, shows up, as we hear time and time again, and sometimes in cliched ways, when you really don't know where you are. When one door is closing and you're not entirely sure when, where, and how the next door is going to open. In that in-between space, in that not knowing, in that it can feel dark, lost, whatever. Having a place to go and trust and know it's going to be okay. I've got you. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other. Just, don't lose faith is a simplified way to say it, but in yourself as much as in the people around you, in the support system you've created, in all the ways that we as a community support one another day in and day out. I think having grown up in the Episcopal Church and also being born into a community pre-existing, I didn't have to join the church as a young person. It was there. It was a given. You take for granted that sort of built-in community support and infrastructure. When you go out in the world, you have to make it and create it again and again. And I think that because I came from that as a given, I believed in it. I sort of trusted it would be there. I trusted that I would be supported in making difficult decisions in the dark, in between, in the lost places. I was a bit lost when I moved to Charlotte, to be honest with you, because age and stage. You don't have a school. You're not meeting everybody de facto because your kids are little. But I was okay being lost. I'd been lost. It was sort of like, here I am again.
But that's sort of a beautiful way to talk about this, which is like, you are describing that the lost place is not an absence of God.
No.
It is
it's when you most feel the presence of God.
Well, and I think that is such a gift for people to hear, because I think we spend a lot of our energy trying to avoid being in that lost place.
Or appearing to be.
Or, yes, appearing to be, or putting up every wall we can in front of it, to our detriment often, because that feels like absence. It feels like forsakenness.
Right.
And what you're describing is almost a comfort level with God in that place of lostness, because you've been doing hard things, right? And so you've discovered the generous love of God in that place.
When we have that sense of God's generosity in every moment, we're lost, we're found, we're happy, we're sad, whatever place we are, we feel capable of taking that next step. And maybe perseverance is just as simple as that, is showing up and taking the next step.
So some of the ways you described how God's hand was upon the people that sat next to you that first day really was generosity shared back to you.
Absolutely.
What other ways have you experienced generosity?
Well, Catherine asking me to join hospitality felt incredible. And I'm a recovering community volunteer, so I don't de facto think being asked to join a committee is it can be a double-edged sword.
Yeah, I hear you.
I've done those fundraisers and spent hours and hours. In fact, so much so that my consultant husband would come in at 10 p.m. and say, "And how much are you getting paid for this?" Like, at least I'm getting paid when I'm on the computer at 10 p.m. But I've been embraced. I've been allowed to be a part of things. I think Catherine was thoughtful and intentional once she got to know me and thought, I can see her gaining as much as she'll give. I can see this being something that will be serving her and serving our community. I felt seen for who I am and the gifts that I have. That's a generosity to actually know someone face to face and say, maybe this person would enjoy this. Maybe I can connect them, and then sort of let go of the outcome. I never felt pressured. At Christ Church, I felt generosity from the newcomers that I meet. They're open, they're interested, they have questions. It's such an exciting thing to be a part of when people are new or just exploring. Gosh, there's so many ways I have felt generosity here, from the clergy, from the staff, from my fellow parishioners, from the times I've spent singing.
Well, I think one of the things that you're saying too, so often when people join a church, it's like, oh, you do math? Great, you're going to be on finance, right? Like, oh, you take pictures? Here's, I need you to do a pictorial directorate, which sounds like my nightmare.
Right.
But what you're describing is the generosity of seeing, of presence, of saying, I am a human being here and I have gifts. Like, I have God gifts to share.
Right.
I'm not a peg, right? In that. And I think that's so powerful. And it's powerful because it not only helps people know themselves more, but like you said, there's joy. Like, you've enjoyed this so much. And one of my questions was going to be, how has hospitality been part of this generosity? You being part of the team, like, why is that important? I think listening to your story, we can make some assumptions about that.
If I can show up for somebody, listen to their story, share some or part of mine, and that helps them decide, pro or con, whether this community is right for them. And hopefully I'm not their only example of Christ Church. I want people to experience lots of different parts of it. So I just see this generosity in openness and a willingness for people to consider me, or how might I serve, or welcome me to something that they're already a part of, or ask me questions, or allow me to ask questions, which I've asked a lot of people a lot of questions because I'm not from Charlotte and didn't, grow up here.
I think one of the things that you're describing too that is encouraging to me is this posture of openness, is being generosity. Because right now, I think in our wider culture, with the level of division, the level of entrenchedness, it's rare to meet people who are, oh, we may not agree or we may not be in the same space, but we're going to figure out how to bump elbows and have a cup of coffee together and be in relationship even when it stretches us different ways.
My mother called that generosity of spirit, sort of the allowing the other person to be who they are and holding the best interpretation, or being open to the best interpretation of who they are, what their words and actions mean. Obviously being honest if you're hurt or whatever. I've held that all these years, this notion of generosity of spirit. And what that allows for us within community, it allows us to disagree. It allows us to not have the same thoughts and ideas. I want to learn from diversity of ideas and thoughts and places people are from. And I think that's where generosity of spirit again sort of manifests, is that openness. Can we allow diversity of thought and opinion in our communities, in our church communities, in all of our interactions?
That what you just shared is such a gift. I've heard so often people describe the Trinity, so God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, in a dance.
Right.
And when you say generosity of spirit, that's what I was envisioning, is this dance of a relationship, this dance of we're going to figure out, and there's going to be clunky parts. We're going to step on each other's feet. We're going to, we'll stumble, but then there'll be days where the music makes sense.
Right.
And we'll experience that joy. I mean, what you described, I think, is a beautiful gift. And what a gift for your mom to give you.
Absolutely.
And then for you to be able to continue to share that. This is a little bit of a, just an extra question. You've been Episcopalian a really long time.
Yep.
What do you love about being Episcopalian?
I love the liturgy and the music. In a world that's constantly changing, it roots me so solidly to my past, my present, and my future. I sort of don't even know that I can articulate it. It's and my faith has evolved hugely in my lifetime. I'm a meditator. I've traveled and I've met all sorts of different, and I come back to my own roots and my own faith, bringing other thoughts and perspectives as well, but never bailing out completely on the fundamentals of the faith that I grew up in. The Episcopal Church isn't asking me to be somebody I'm not. It's not asking me to say or do things that I am not going to be comfortable with. It doesn't feel like an organization, because churches are people that tries to exclude but to include. It's just, here we are.
Yes.
Come worship. We're not asking you to be other than who you are, and showing up with your doubt and your faith and your fear and your trust, and you get to bring it all in and bring it to the table and be real with who you are.
Well, I think the way that gets embodied here is in wellness.
Yes.
Is to say you get to bring all of it.
Yep.
And we're not afraid of it.
That's right.
And it's not marked by shame.
Right.
Like, you have something hard, and not only are we going to talk about it, but we're going to talk about it from the pulpit.
Yep.
We're going to talk about it from a faith forum. It doesn't have to be in a corner.
Right. We're going to bring Brene Brown, and we're going to bring, all different types of people that are sharing different ways of approaching the challenges of being a human in this day and age.
Absolutely.
I'm a language person, so I thought, isn't it an amazing thing, though, that we can meet different communities where they are speaking the language that we have, and it's still the Episcopal liturgy. It's still, holding that ritual, which I do believe is intrinsically, as human beings, we seek, I even hate to use the word comfort, because it's so much bigger and more than that, but the holding that rituals provides in a sacred way, and that any one person in the congregation is not that.
Yeah.
It's that we all come and hold that sacred space together and say these words along with communities all over the world, saying them in many different kinds of ways, that creates the temenos, that creates the sacred space.
Oh, that's beautiful. What are you excited about for the next season here at Christ Church? Well,
it's hard not to be excited about walking into the new space as soon as it's finished, right? I'm excited to see. We have more newcomers coming than ever before. I'm sure you're new, but Catherine's talked to you about it. Just more and more and more people, many young people. They're going to see us into the next era here. Yeah. And so I'm just open to seeing what unfolds, from the doors opening to what that means, because that's just day one, right? What's going to expand, what's going to expand into that space.
Well, and I can envision too, for newcomers to be able to sit and have a cup of coffee.
Right.
Or say, meet me here.
Right.
Oh, you're new to Charlotte?
Meet me.
Let's not fight about parking. Why don't you come here where we have ample parking, and I will meet you for a cup of coffee in this space to say welcome, and what does that look like? Right. And I think COVID changed a lot of young people's lives.
Yes.
In ways that they're lonely, they're disconnected, their kids are lonely, and so to have a space where they can walk in. I joked on another episode that the name tag game here is very strong.
Mine's in my purse. Where did I put my handbag? I brought it in case you told me to put it on.
I was like, I've never been in a church that has such high name tag game, and just this idea of we're going to learn to see each other.
Yep.
And in a world that is struggling with that, we're going to see each other. And you said it, I felt seen.
Yep.
And so I could keep coming here. I
Day
could
one.
keep showing up. Yeah.
And that is the part that I felt was divine guidance, or right, that it was right away and so inescapable that I couldn't sort of hem and haw and say, well, maybe, and it just totally showed up.
Well, we are moving towards the end of this conversation,
Yes.
and wow, I feel like I've just learned so much from you.
Likewise.
And the gift of presence and the gift of feeling seen. I've ended every episode by asking people the same 2 questions.
All right.
Saying that when life gets tough, lots of people turn to God, but other people turn to snacks.
Yes.
So I want to know what your go-to comfort food is.
Oh my goodness. What is my go-to? Well, I'm gluten-free. I made an amazing gluten-free muffin from somewhere, but not always easy to find. Your comfort food also kind of needs to be something you don't have to go make yourself.
Exactly. So you can just grab it and enjoy it.
Grab and enjoy. And
I love
that's
that.
Probably it.
And what are you grateful for?
Oh, so much. That's another 35 minutes.
What are you grateful for today? Let's do that.
What am I grateful for today? Every time I've been shown generosity of spirit, and every time when it wasn't easy, and every time because I was given that, I was able to show up and have generosity of spirit, or embody that for someone else when it wasn't easy. It's an ongoing challenge. I said something to someone today about, I'm working on this, and some days it's easy and others it's not. And so the grace that we're given when it's not as easy, because we're none of us perfect and we're just doing the best every day that we can. Forgiveness. I'm hugely grateful for forgiveness. That is probably one of my favorite parts of anything, is that we are asking to be forgiven and we are forgiving, and that those 2 things go hand in hand. So I'm grateful for all that.
That is beautiful.
Y'all, does your cup feel full? Oh my goodness, that conversation was just an overflow of wisdom and gentleness of spirit. That's what I'm going to hold on to. The way that Deirdre set the table for a conversation with gentleness of spirit. And I am hoping and praying that I will be that kind of person in this world that changes spaces by our generosity of presence. And I can't wait to hear your wisdom and your stories about the generosity of God in our midst. So use the link in the show notes to share a voice memo or an email with us to tell us about the ways that God is moving in your own life. And again, it's not going to surprise you as the director of annual giving that I want to invite you into this movement of stories and generosity, of welcome, as we have more newcomers than we've ever had coming through these doors. I want to invite you to make a financial commitment, what we call a pledge, to the 2026 annual campaign. You can do that online at christchurchcharlotte.org. Thank you for showing up and for listening with generous hearts.